Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
I've been doing this podcast since September of 2012, and boy, are my lips tired.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And we're happy to be doing a full week of shows this week. Last week was kind of disrupted by a couple of events outside of our control, so we're planning to do the full week this week. 3 days worth, that's our full week. It used to be 5 days, but now we're down to 3 because, hey, I need more time to myself, and that's okay. It's a good thing. But I have a guest joining me today. Her name is Heather Forrester. She is a holistic healer, and we were just chatting before we got started here, getting to know each other a bit, and I can just tell right off the bat, she's the best kind of healer slash coach slash guru slash whatever you want to put onto it as a label, because she's been there. She's been through the mill, and that's who you want helping you. You don't want somebody helping you who's never been there before. She's been there. She's done that. She's got the t-shirt. She's going to tell us about it. Here she is. Hey, Heather. Yes. How you doing?
Yes, I love that. And I love that you say that because, you know, it's so true. Sometimes the best PhD is in experience. Yeah. And it's just because, you know, you've been there and you've learned the lessons. And if you've made it to the other side, you had to learn the solutions to those lessons. So that's why, you know, as somebody who does holistic healing, trauma comes up a lot, right? Mm-hmm. But something that I make very clear in my post or in anything is you don't have to relive or we don't have to go through your baggage to heal the trauma, right? And I do believe there's a time and place when in the healing process, especially when it comes to trauma, to have those moments where you're just talking. You just, you know, I don't know if you've ever been through that, but where it's like this happened and you just can't shut up about it.
Oh, yeah.
Process it. Right. Yeah. So I believe we're all pieces of a greater puzzle working together, and there's processes in where we're at. So it's I believe therapy has its purposes, right? But I believe the difference between me and a therapist, right, especially as a healer and a mentor in that field is, you know, I'm kind of there for the people who've already been through the therapy. They've already talked, and they're ready to actually create solutions and make sure that they don't end up in those situations again. Or if they do have to go through something like that, they know how to handle it. They have the tools, the internal tools to get through it and do anything in their power to make sure that they don't end up there again. So I feel like that's kind of the difference. It's therapy is there for you to kind of unleash it all, right? And then having life coaches are kind of there to help you be the best version of yourself so that you can create a new experience for yourself. At least that's been my experience. So I love that.
I like the way you described that. That's very good. It kind of reminded me of a story, a joke of sorts that was told years ago on the old television series West Wing. One of the lead characters was telling a story to one of the others, and he was describing how in the story, the guys in the story, who's the focus of the story, is named Joe, and he's walking along and he falls in a hole in the sidewalk where there was a manhole cover removed, and he falls down, right? And he can't get out. And so he's looking up, looking for help, and he sees a doctor walking by and says, "Doc, can you help me?" And the doctor writes out a prescription, throws it down, and walks on. And he sees a priest walking by. "Father, can you help me? I'm down in this hole." And the father writes out a prayer, sends it down, and walks on. Finally, he sees a friend of his walk by and say, "Hey, can you help me? I'm down in this hole." So his friend jumps down in the hole. He says, "What are you doing? Now we're both stuck down here." He says, "Yeah, but I've been down here before. I know the way out."
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. And I love that you mentioned all of it because like I said, I do believe there's a time and place for everything, you know, as somebody who's holistic in the ways that I do things. I'm also a total advocate. It's so funny. I actually, made a post one day and I said something about, if science and spirituality had a baby, it would be me. And one of my clients was like, "Oh yeah, you're Scientology." And I was like, "Yeah, I like that."
Really good.
So it's I'm total devil's advocate, and I believe we need all of it, right? But you definitely need not only do you need maybe prescription sometimes or a prayer sometimes, but sometimes you just need to be shown how to do it, right? Yeah. You just need to be, your hand needs to be held, but you're the one doing it, right? You're just being shown the way, and you're not you're not putting a Band-Aid over it, and you're not, just giving responsibility away. You're taking that responsibility and you're walking the walk. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So tell us your particular fell down the hole story. Let's see where you came from. That always gives us a good context to start with.
Yeah. Yeah. My story's a wild one.
Okay.
So you guys, buckle up, but so I am currently what I am doing is I am a manifestation strategist and intuitive healer. And so I have different programs that I help people come into themselves. Really, it's focused on self-mastery, awakening the chakras, aligning to your goals and your desires, creating balance and fulfillment in all the areas of life so that you can feel fulfilled. And one of the main reasons I do that is because as a business owner and a mother, a partner, a caregiver for my mother, we were talking about this earlier, right? I have many different hats. And in order for me to be successful and in order for me to create the legacy that I want, it comes down to my own inner alignment and balance within my own life. And so in order for me to be where I am today, to be a #1 best-selling author, to have all of the recognitions that I've had and all of the experience that I've had and the results that my clients are getting, it's come down to that alignment and that balance. So that is the main thing that I focus on and that I teach, because I know how important it is. If you want to achieve anything, if you don't want to sabotage your success as a career person or a professional, or if you don't want to sabotage success in romance, in your romantic life, in your relationships, or even as a parent, if you don't want to sabotage that relationship with your child, you have to have these things. So it doesn't matter what you're trying to fulfill. And if you're anything like me, a lot of us we want to fulfill in multiple areas, right? Most humans, I believe, want fulfillment in all big 5 areas of their life. That's their health, their career, finance, family, relationships, and then spirituality or other important areas, right? So these are kind of these are the sections that I kind of focus on and help people find that alignment and that balance in.
Sure.
So what kind of got me here, or what led me here? So I've been an entrepreneur for the last 7 years. So when I was 20 years old, I had opened up a salon. And so, and I'd been booth renting before that. So I'd had my own little mini business, but I took on my own full business right after I turned 20. And 2 weeks after I opened my salon, my father passed away unexpectedly. And my dad was kind of my everything. He spoiled me. He made sure that I never had to lift a finger. I think he dressed me until I was 8 years old. It's really embarrassing. But, he did it all. So when I lost him but now he did create, because of how much he was there for me, it was great, but it created a lot of codependency. It created a lot of lack of independence for myself. And it also was not easy to lose him inevitably in the end, because I was so reliant upon him and how he showed up. Who's going to do my dishes now? Who's going to help me with life? Like, who's going to come check my oil in my car, right? Like, he did everything and he never expected me to do any of it. So meanwhile, there were pros and cons to this. When he passed, it rattled me, rattled me to my core. And, I didn't start, here's what's funny is about a spiritual awakening. Some people will resonate with this. Some people might not yet. Right. But, after he died, my spiritual awakening began. But I didn't know it. And, probably not my first, but probably the one that was leading to my awareness. Right. So the spiritual awakening was more so in the phase of just curiosity at that point. Like, so when he died, I didn't really have any ties to any particular religion. And I had actually just kind of gotten interested into the fact that there might be something. Previously I was atheist, so I was like, nope, I'm not in any of it. Right. So when he died, I didn't accept it. And I was like, I got to find him. And so I had belief in like spirits and like the afterlife and ghosts and, just different things, but I didn't understand any of it. And I never even cared to look into it. And so something, I don't even know how I had heard it. Maybe I never heard it. Maybe it just like came to my brain, but something came up in my mind and was like, I think I need to open my third eye chakra so I can see dead people and like talk to my dad.
It sounds like a download the way you're saying that.
Right. Right. And that's exactly I don't know where I heard it. I don't know what show. I don't know where I found that information. It just kind of was like, if you open your third eye, you can see dead people. So you can see spirits or whatever. And so I was just like, okay. So then I went down the rabbit hole of like watching all these videos and doing these meditations, and it wasn't working. Or here, it's so funny. I love this. I love getting to tell this part because everybody goes through this, right? Especially when they're new to meditation, like, or at least I say most people anyways, they go through this phase of, it doesn't work for me. Like it's not happening. Yeah. But I didn't know why. So I'm sitting here trying to meditate and I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool, but I'm bored and I'm thinking about 100 different things. It's not,
I'm bored. I love it.
It's not really working. So I don't really know what this is doing. So I kind of fell off of it. So after about 6 months after my dad had passed, the grief, was pretty high still, but it had, went down a little bit. There was a word that I was going to use, but I lost it, but it had dissipated. There it is. And so I kind of like let it go and I ended up getting pregnant, because I was like, okay, well, I just want to have a baby. I was married at the time. So, I was like, we're just going to have a baby. I'm going to name her the baby after my daughter, after my dad. And, she ended up being my daughter. So I named her after my dad. And so I got really distracted, with this whole, let's bring this new life in. So I let all that spiritual stuff go for a little while and I was just focused on creating life. And in the middle of that, and it's crazy, numbers are big for me. My dad passed away 7/13. 7/13. And so the 13th week that I was pregnant, my intuition was screaming. I didn't know this. I didn't understand that it was my intuition, but something was telling me that something like my husband, there was something wrong with him. And I was like, you're not acting right. Like, am I getting fat? Like, do you not love me anymore? Like what's happening? The pregnancy hormones. I'm like, do you not really love me? Like what's happening? We're about to have a baby together. Did I just like ruin my life? Like what's going on? And of course the whole entire pregnancy, he's like, no, like there's nothing wrong, but I just know, I know there's something up. And towards the end of the pregnancy, it's like I knew, but it just wasn't, every time I would call it out or every time I would have a conversation about it, it was denied. So it was like, I was like, I don't know if there's a term for that, but I just wasn't being told the truth. And so anyways, my husband was transitioning into a female behind my back during the end of my pregnancy. And this was hard for me particularly. And it's very strange because one of the reasons I was so disconnected from spirituality growing up was because I was actually with women. I wasn't comfortable around men. And so I dated girls. And, so when this happened, people were not supportive and they didn't understand. And they were like, well, is he doing this for you? Did you want this? And I was like, no, I don't want this. Like if I wanted to be with a woman, I would have been with a woman. And it was a double whammy because after my dad died, my husband kind of took that role. It kind of, how patterns repeat when you don't heal them. So this pattern of depending on my dad and this figure in my life, he really absorbed that in my mind.
Sure.
Like he was like, okay, well now you are taking care of the house. You're taking care of my car. You're making sure I'm protected. You're going to love me like my dad loved me. And so when he was like, I don't want to be this figure anymore, it was, I thought, and I just had my daughter. My daughter was 4 months old and I was already in postpartum depression because, I had a lot of depression and anxiety from just life in general that had not been dealt with, that was pouring all over me whenever I had my daughter. So when this came up, it was a huge crumble. There's something called the shadow of the dark night shadow of the soul or something like that.
Dark night of the soul. Yeah.
Yeah. That was it. That was it for me. And I lost my mind. I was lost. I was lost in that losing of my mind for a good 6 to 8 months.
Wow.
And that was even hard coming out of it because one of the bigger pieces of the healing of coming out of that realization that I was gone for so long. So that guy just had a baby and I was not present at all for that. So then it's like, and so it's like she went from being this infant that I was blacked out to this almost like this 1-year-old. And then I'm just sitting here like, did I mess her up? I don't even remember any of this. So then there was just so much guilt and it was just so much to process: the death, the divorce, the lack of presence in my daughter's first year of her life. But thankfully, like I said, it all was what it was supposed to be. And it's so funny. I see this a lot. How your first kid is, you grow up, like your first kid grows up with you. And that is so real for me because I grew up with her after her first year in that year of healing. in a way that I didn't know I needed to grow up.
Interesting.
And I was so sad and like stressed. My body was beginning to shut down. So right when my biggest awakening where the awareness came in was I was heavily addicted to marijuana. Thank God it's, not the worst thing to be addicted to, but I was running away from all of my emotions, from the grief. I wouldn't deal with any of it from what just happened over the last year and a half before her. And, so one day I was smoking and my heart felt like it was going to stop. And I had this like loud voice, and it was like, you can let your daughter watch you die, or you can let her watch you heal. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know I had a choice. It was the first moment I realized I had a choice in my life.
Wow.
And so that voice, like I said, obviously, and it's so funny, I actually did a Q&A in my group last week, and somebody was like, I have these feelings of what's the point, but I must care to be asking this question, right? And so it's like, that's where I was in this state of what's the point of all of this? And then that question made me curious enough that it sparked the realization of how much I do care. And so I just had that moment, and that was the turning point. And then that's when I started asking questions. And what I found was when you start asking the right questions, how the law of attraction works is you will attract the right answers. So if you're stuck in these questions of why me, why did I deserve this? Why is this happening to me? Which is where I was, what did I do to, what did I do? And I thought I was like a terrible person in a past life to be punished in that way. And I couldn't even fathom that there was blessings all around me. And so whenever I started asking questions, well, how can I heal? How do I see things differently? How do I create something differently? Everything changed. Everything opened up, and I was pouring with information. Wow. And it just blew my mind. And the next thing I knew, I was going to work, and I remember people's reactions to me because they had just watched me go through my dad's death. My dad died while I was at work, and I had a client at the time. And so one client in particularly saw the meltdown. And then everybody was there through the transition and loss of my husband, literally the loss of his existence. Yeah. And, so, and not to say, that sounds maybe dramatic, but that's how it felt. That's just how it felt.
The good reason why it sounds like it's dramatic is because it is dramatic.
It was very dramatic. But they watched me, just continuously crumble. But I was still I was doing hair better than ever. My business was thriving, and they're just like, I know you've been crying this whole time, but you did a great job with my hair. And I'm just like, I don't care about your hair, dude. Like, I don't even know how I did it. I'm just on autopilot here, but I'm glad you like it. Thanks. This is the only thing I'm good at because I'm not good at life. And, so anyways, they watched that journey of me crumbling. And then one day, whenever that voice came to me and I started asking these questions and everything came to me, and I started and I meditated again, and it was a completely different experience than it was the first time because I was open. I was receptive to what could happen, right? I was like, I was no longer in this, will it work, to what if it works? Because there's a different energy. Whenever you're will it, you've got that doubt. When you're like, well, what if, you're open and you have no expectations of what it's going to look like. And you create the space for the opportunity for your mind to be blown and for miracles to approach you. And so when it happened, when all of that information was just downloading, I just started going to work and I just couldn't stop talking about it. I was like, look, this is it. And they're like, what are you, like, I was probably talking gibberish. I probably sounded like I had no idea that I was being articulate at all. And I was like, yeah, I don't really know. And within months, I had decided everything that I had created in that life was not real. And it was not who Heather was, down to my favorite color. I'd picked everything based off of what I thought society wanted or what I thought I needed to do to get the husband or to get the job or to make money or to survive. And I didn't even know who I was. And, my career included. I was only doing it because I knew I wanted to be in control of my hours, and I liked being a business owner. Like, I had the entrepreneurial spirit. I was like, I'll do hair. I can be creative. I can run my show, but it's hard work. You have to stand there for hours and hours. It's not easy. And so and especially if you're not charging a lot because you don't believe in your worth and you're trying to give out all these discounts like I was. So I'm standing there working all day just to make maybe $1,000 a week. And, a good chunk of that had to go into business expenses. So I wasn't even bringing that home,
Right.
So it was rough. But essentially I realized I didn't know who I was. I essentially realized I hadn't picked anything based off of what my soul wanted. I picked it off of what society made me think I needed. And this tapestry actually behind me was one of the first things that I bought that was a Heather decision, was like who I am. Yeah. And it's so funny. I don't even know. I just decided I like the yellow. I like the black and the white, the yin and the yang. I just liked it. I didn't have any reason. I just because I liked it. And so I bought it, and it actually ended up becoming my business logo because the yin and the yang is where I get my alignment and my balance is by balancing the light and the dark, the shadow self and the higher self, the chaos and the peace. And so it is the foundation of everything that I do. And I had no idea when I bought it that it was going to be so significant.
That's pretty cool, though, that you were able to at least connect with your higher being enough to notice that's something I need to buy right now, and not even know the reason why. You just kind of went with it.
Just went with it. Exactly.
Yeah, that's very cool. One thing I'm always curious about, and I want to know what it is for you. You were describing how you had this huge downpour of information coming to you. When you get that kind of a download, how do you experience it? What like if you were to describe the process to somebody, how would you describe that process?
So I guess it feels euphoric. It just feels like tingling. I don't know. Like, that's how I feel it. And I feel good. And, now, so there's a difference between downloads you're understanding versus downloads you're not understanding, I believe, because I've had both. So when you're having a download, but you're not interpreting it, or you don't understand what it's trying to tell you, it can feel overwhelming. It can feel, a lot of confusion or frustration, and emotional in a bad way. But if it's a download, and then there's actually a middle one too. I've had middle ones where it's like, I don't understand it, but I know it's good. Right? Like, so it's like, I'm emotional and I'm uncomfortable, but I feel really good about it. Right? Like, so that's a download I've interpreted as like, that's when growth is happening, is you don't know what's coming next, but it's good. You're on the right track. So there's that like middle one, but then there's these like really good downloads where you're journaling a lot, or like the words are just coming to you. So like that experience for me as a virtual business owner is like when I'm working out, for example, I'm connecting to myself, I'm connecting to the universe, and I get an idea for a program, or I get an idea for a training to do, an event or a class or a piece of content, right? So for me, and not just work, it happens in like my relationship. I actually, am with my twin flame. So I don't know if you talk a lot about the twin flame journey or not, but
not a lot, but tell us what it's like from your perspective. It's always good.
Well, so essentially the twin flame journey is when you are a twin flame and you meet your twin flame, essentially it's not a typical relationship. The relationship is actually very triggering, and you guys reflect what needs to be healed of each other. So it's a lot of work to be in the twin flame journey. With my twin flame, so sometimes the downloads, depending on what I need, right, in the moment, if things are good with me and my twin flame, which how you know things are good is because you're both doing your work. You're both doing the healing. You're both connecting to the universe. You're both in alignment. You're both balanced. But when one or both are out of balance, then our relationship becomes very egoic, and we are mirroring everything that needs to be healed. And it can be extremely volatile, whatever, like not necessarily like we're beating each other up, but like we are pulling each other's triggers out left and right. And it's a very uncomfortable experience, but it's also extremely transformative, especially when you have the tools to dissect those triggers and move forward. Because what happens is generally speaking, you're not going to meet your twin flame until you have gotten to that certain level of awakening or know-how, because it won't work. The relationship will just be sabotaged and you won't stay together. But if you have those tools, you can use those moments of that ebb and flow and that chaos, those moments of chaos to transform yourself into the next level. So I don't know if that's making sense, but maybe it is.
Well, yeah,
but anyways.
I've been reminded not reminded, I've been told by others that, by one other particular person that I can think of, that a twin flame, a relationship with a twin flame is a lot like the ultimate roller coaster ride. Like you're going to have the highest highs, the lowest lows. You're going to swerve the biggest swerves. It's going to be the biggest curve. It's going to be the biggest, baddest roller coaster you ever rode in your life.
Yes, it's a crazy experience. But I will tell you, when you guys are both in harmony and alignment, and you guys are both on that frequency of just pure unconditional love and acceptance, it is the most blissful, right? It is that highest of high. So, but again, you know, with that comes the lowest of lows, and that's just how it is. But those lows have the potential, when you're in that, when you see problems from a healing perspective, or from a, how is this a lesson, instead of, you know, that victim mentality of why is this happening to me? And you are experiencing problems from this mentality of, what can I learn here? How can I be better here? Like these kinds of questions, then it's hard in the moment. But when you know, like always in the back of my mind, even if I'm, you know, acting out of alignment, I know in the back of my mind, I'm going to learn something here. I'm not happy about it, but I'm going to learn something here. Right. So, that's how I'm always feeling. And I know everything. I always know everything's going to be okay. But anyways, yeah, the twin flame journey is crazy. But those downloads, like you were asking me a second ago, it could be about one or the other. It could be, like I remember, like I said, if it's like for my work, it might be things that I'm creating, like classes or content. But if it's for like personal life, usually in the twin flame journey, for whatever reason, and I just have my journal over here, like I have to figure out, like, why am I so frustrated with him? Right. I have to figure out like what's going on. And so my exercise for that is, because that's when I'm frustrated. That's when the universe is trying to tell me something, give me a downloaded, and I don't know what it wants to tell me. But the truth is, I do know. I just need to take a second to stop telling myself that I'm afraid of the answer, right? Like I need to just trust that the answer is going to be in my highest good. And I just need to allow the space for it to come. So that's what I find with the downloads that are uncomfortable, is our anxiety or the illusion of fear is telling us we're not prepared or we're not going to like the answer. And that's generally not the case. You know, what I find the best exercise for me is an exercise of gratitude. So when I am misaligned or out of balance, and things aren't going well, I find why, right? And it's because I'm complaining, right? There's something that's happening in one part of my life that I'm frustrated with. So I need to write those complaints down. I need to be honest. I need to say, what am I not happy with in my life right now? And then I need to turn it around. I need to turn it around with the power of 10 things to be blessed for. You know, why can you be grateful that there's this delay? Or why can you be grateful that there's something not going well? And it's one of the most challenging things you will do, but it is the most transformative, because you will find the truth behind your ugly frustrations, and they won't be so ugly anymore. You will see, like, and just for example, one reason I find to be grateful for delays or when things go wrong is I always come back to, it's teaching me to be more patient and more grateful. And that automatically just makes me feel better, because I'm like, this is a teacher. This is a messenger. This is a teacher. This is actually helping me step into my next level. And I don't, you know, and then it just, you know, you get to, the more you go through that power of 10 and you really challenge yourself to get to 10, the more you learn about you get to expand the situation, and you get to change your perspective on it and come back into a new vibration or frequency that you're putting off.
This is very interesting on a number of different levels. One of the levels is the fact that you found your twin flame, and it's kind of leading me to want to ask a question that is kind of like an ongoing hypothesis that I have, and I want to see, is it true for you too?
Yeah.
And I won't tell you what the hypothesis is, because that'll kind of, you know, lean you one direction or the other. I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to kind of backdoor it, so to speak. But with your twin flame, did you feel like before you found your mate, did you feel like you were looking for your twin flame?
So no. What's funny is I didn't really understand the twin flame journey until I got with my twin flame and we had a separation period and it was terrible. So I had heard the term twin flame and I'd kind of thrown it around, and actually the relationship that was the nightfall or whatever, that terrible thing, was my false twin flame. And so the false twin flame journey is exact opposite to the twin flame journey. So I know that this is kind of a long answer to your question, but.
Well, it's that kind of a question. It's a setup question. So I have to kind of go with it.
Right. So after, and like I said, I had this idea because right after that relationship, I saw this video and it was like, you will experience a false twin flame, and right after you will meet your real twin flame. And it resonated so hard, but I kind of let it go. And I needed to let it go because I wouldn't have done the work that I needed to do to meet my twin flame anyways. So what's funny is for me, after leaving that relationship with the false twin flame, I was alone for over a year, and I was only focused on myself, my relationship with myself, and I was not searching for, I'd closed my doors. I actually didn't want any friends. I didn't want anything other than, I was just focused on like my connection, like healthy connections. That's it. I didn't want anything random. I didn't want anything that wasn't serving me. So I'd shut those doors. And then after about a year and a half, I decided, okay, I kind of feel like I'm ready to invite something in. And so there was a very short period of time where I was casually dating, but I was dating people who weren't checking off the boxes. Like I had a list of cause obviously like as a manifester and manifestation strategist, one of my things was like, I'm going to manifest my soulmate, right? I'm going to manifest the one. And so I made that list. And before I started looking for that person and other people, I made sure I was aligned with that person. And so I was like, okay, well, what on this list am I expecting to have that I can't provide? Because I can't expect to receive that if I can't provide it. So I got aligned with my list, and then I would casually date, and I would like, okay, well, they're not this, they're not that. And I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work. And then that would end. And so finally I let it go altogether. I was like, okay, I know what I want. This is what I want. I'm aligned to it. And I'm done looking for it. I'm done trying. If they ask me out and they don't align with it, the answer is no. And then I joined a gym, and a few months later, I took this yoga class, and the mom and me, like my twin flame's mom was the yoga instructor, and we became best friends. And it was so funny. I was walking out of class with her, and her son was there. I didn't know it was her son. I didn't want nothing to do with him. And I was like totally like actually like trying to run away, but there was just this weird like kinetic like pull, and I was like, nope. I don't know. It was just the first time that I actually, and it was just so funny. So no, the answer is I was not looking for my twin flame. I was manifesting. I was manifesting a partner. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I don't know.
That's good. Well, I actually sandbagged you a little bit because I said that I didn't want to ask directly because I didn't want to influence you. So I was going to come in through the back door, but that actually was the direct question, because the hypothesis that I have is that the people, and you just validated. So thank you for that. But the hypothesis is that the people who look for twin flame don't find it. The ones who don't look for it are the ones who find it.
Right. Exactly. And I have a client, and she's a human design guide. She's obsessed with the twin flame journey. She's so funny. Basically what I have understood, and she validates this with me, because she's done way more research onto it. She's actually the one who's like, he's your twin flame. And I was like, what? Okay. I was like, I'm mad at him. Don't tell me that. Like, And she's like, that's why. And I was like, oh, good. And it's like all the stars are aligned. I'm like, damn it. Like, what is this? Like, what's happening? I'm like, this is, oh, good. I got more lessons to learn here. This is really good. Thank you, universe. And, so anyways, what we have come to the understanding of, whether you're looking for a twin flame or not, you will not find it unless you know who you are, you're aligned with your own purpose, and you have to be a whole individual before you will find your twin flame. Otherwise, it can be very problematic and it's not going to work anyways. And it's just not going to be in the highest good of anybody for you to connect and to come into one. So you have to be a whole within yourself before it's going to happen, regardless of whether you're looking for it or not.
Which is basically true for anything that you want to bring into your life. Anyone, any person, anything, any experience, and you name it, you got, that's
exactly
the basic concept of alignment going on there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really annoying too.
It is. It can be, for sure, because there's times where you're like, well, what if the thing will make me better? Yeah. It's like, nope, that's not going to happen. You got to do that yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yep. One of my favorite things to overquote. Everybody has their thing that they overquote. For me, it's the Ted Lasso TV series, and there's the woman who's the psychologist, Dr. Sharon, in that particular series, and the line that she came out with when I first heard, I said, "Oh my God, that just nails it." She says, "The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off."
Yes, yeah.
It's like, well, so yeah, that you just described life.
So true. That is the truth. That's hilarious.
Wow. So anyway, all right, let's see if we can fast forward a little bit. So we got an idea of where you came from. You had your hair salon. You were doing that for a while, and then you're going through all this tremendous growth. You have the big download. You meet your twin flame and so forth. But tell us how you actually got into what you described as the virtual business.
So, like I said, when I was a salon owner, I kind of quickly came to the realization, like, this isn't actually what I want to do. There's something else that I'm meant to be doing. And I became really obsessed with just inner healing work. And I had no idea that I was going to be a mentor in any capacity. All I knew was that I wanted to focus on it full time. I didn't care about anything else. I was becoming obsessed with it. And it was all I wanted to spend time with. And so that, and my daughter. And so I made the decision without even knowing what I was going to do next to just close my salon down. And people were like so shocked, and my family was calling me. They were like, well, what are you going to do? Like, what is this? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I'm going to become self-sustaining and live in the woods. I'm going off grid. I'm done with this stuff.
So you didn't even try to sell the business. It's like, closed it. We're done. Closed for business.
Well, I mean, the business wasn't even necessarily in a position, because it's not like I had a bunch of employees and a bunch of clientele to sell off. Like, it was like a self-made, even though, like, and I had the salon for over 3 years, but like I said, it wasn't like this big business to sell. It wasn't,
it hadn't become its own identity yet, really.
Right. So it wasn't like that. It was just my clients, and right. It wasn't an entity to sell at that point. It was so young. It was still a baby. But I just closed it down, and I had no idea what I was going to do. So I just focused on my healing. I got all my debt paid off, and I got to where I could just like live minimally for a little while. And I just focused on healing, and very quickly, the opportunities to go back to school to get my certification as a life coach, a meditation instructor, and a Reiki master, it all came to me at once. And so I went and got a loan, to get my intuition, and I just started, and I got clients immediately. Like, it was crazy. And I've sustained clients ever since, and the business just keeps growing. And it's just like, those little winks from the universe that are like, well, yep, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I love it. Like, I love every minute of it. And so it's just, and my client, that I was talking about earlier, she's a human design guide. She told me, I don't know if you know anything about human design, or if you've talked about human design before, but
I had one of my good friends read my chart for me. Apparently I'm a manifesting generator, but beyond that,
me too. Okay. And, so, as a manifesting generator, at least for me, part of that means things just come to me when I make decisions or when I have clarity or when I'm set on something and it's meant for me, it will just land in my lap. And that's kind of how it all happened. I made these decisions. I took the risks. I followed my emotions without even knowing like what it meant or what it was going to be for. Right. I just did it and it all just came to me. It just landed in my lap right where it needed to be. So.
You also demonstrated a quality that would scare a lot of people, but it apparently didn't scare you at all, which was you don't mind just being vulnerable and say, okay, I don't know where the money's going to come from next. I don't know where the career is going to come from next. I'm just going to go. And a lot of people would be frightened of that.
Well, and I understand. And had I not lost my dad and my husband back to back, I wouldn't have been able to be like, I don't care. Like, or, you know, it wasn't necessarily that I didn't care. It was just, I've lost it all. My mom's got a house. I don't know. I just felt like if I needed.
By contrast, it was nothing is what it sounds like.
Right. It was nothing. Like it was like once after I lost my dad and everything else just started to crumble afterwards, I was like, I don't know. There's this country song that I used to love when I was growing up, and it was like, this man being interviewed and, he had just lost his house because of like a tornado or whatever. And he just like goes on to this, it's such a sad song. He's like, well, I lost my dad. I've lost my grandpa. I held my wife's hand as she died. This ain't nothing. And that was like it. That was my experience with it. It's like, I get it. I get how scary it is. And I teach people today actually because some people aren't willing or ready or in a position where they can make that happen. And I get it. It's not everybody's journey, but I actually teach people how to transition or to make those changes in a safe way. Because even though I took a lot of risk, I was also very smart about it. I made sure I had some different things. I was doing hair on the side, like at home. Like I was doing some things to bring in some income. I wasn't just going to be stupid about it. And I was, you know what I'm saying? Like I still took action. I still made sure that I was safe. I have a daughter to take care of. I couldn't just abandon everything. Right. So, but I got myself in a position to where I could afford to let the business go and do and figure my stuff out. And
well,
so
plus it sounds like your life had also kind of gotten you in that position. I mean, you described it very nicely. Your father had died. You lost your husband. Everything was in this massive transition period. And when you're in a transition period, one more change almost doesn't even matter anymore. It's just like you roll with the punches at that point. Oh, okay. Exactly. So something else happening. All right. Yeah. Well, we'll deal with that too. It's just one more on the list.
Exactly. Exactly. And like I said, I've always been a very responsible person. Obviously, I wouldn't have been able to open up my own business at 20 years old had I not been. So it's not like I just,
that's impressive, by the way.
Thank you. It's not like I just went willy-nilly and was making really stupid decisions. I made sure that I was set up for success the whole time and made sure that I was safe and that me and my daughter were going to be taken care of. So, I don't want people to confuse risk taking with giving up or letting go or just, living by a prayer or whatever, right? Like this really like living in the clouds, because, again, it comes back to that balance of there has to be an alignment between the masculine and the feminine for it to really work. And the universe wouldn't have provided me with so many miracles and opportunities had I not shown up and had I not taken those steps to make sure I was taken care of, had I not, got myself dressed, so to speak. Right. Like the universe wasn't going to put my clothes on for me like my dad used to when I was 8. So like I had to do it myself, and then the universe provided. And so it's the key. So you have to have both, and you have to have that balance of both to receive the miracles and the opportunities. You can't just receive without putting in some sort of work or effort or to show the universe that you're ready to take it on and hold it steadily. Right.
Yeah. What you're describing, to my mind anyway, is a great example of how mindset isn't about one thing. Because on the one hand, you were in a transition period. There is mindset associated with that. On the other hand, you were, like you said, you had set yourself up for success, meaning that you always had a certain orientation going on. And I know that one. I get that one. I've always been that way too. I'm going through this stuff here, but there's some foundation here. At least I've got that going on. I'm going to lean on that for a bit while I'm doing this other stuff over here. So there's a second piece of the mindset. And then there's the growth piece where you're getting hit with all this stuff that's coming in and you're dealing with that stuff. And now you're dealing with that part of the mindset. And I mention all this because we get this idea in our minds that there is one mindset that we must always adopt. And that's not the way life works. We're dealing with different kinds of mindsets all the time, often moment to moment. And I think many of us kind of get into a frame of mind that says, well, that's not good. That's basically going to hold me back. And that's the problem right there. That's the thing. Everything has to be pigeonholed down to one thing, or I can't have what I want, or I can't go the way I want, or whatever.
What's coming to my mind when you describe that as being problematic, I get why it seems problematic, but the only reason it would be problematic is if you have not taken the time to build that connection to yourself. Because before all of this, like when I was being a hairdresser, every week I was stressing about money. I was counting every penny. I was fine, but I didn't feel fine. Like I was calculating everything. I was overthinking everything. And it was because I had so many emotions, and then I was smoking weed to run away from my uncomfortable emotions. So it was like this cycle of frustration, overwhelm. I'm so high, I can't even think about anything right now. And then just every day, that was the repetitive cycle of it, right? And it wasn't until that downfall, and it wasn't until that moment of like, hey, you're kind of killing yourself. You're going to die, or you don't have to. You've got a choice right now. And it was that moment when I started making those choices. That's when I started to do that work of, well, how do I if I'm going to heal, I have to manage these mindsets. I have to manage these feelings, these thoughts, these emotions. How do I do that? Yeah. And then, of course, I read books and saw documentaries, and then I got my meditation instructor license. And, with all of that, then that's when it all kind of clicked. It's like, this is how you work through your emotions. This is how you build a relationship with your thoughts and your mental body, your emotional body, your physical body, your spiritual body. And the reason those mindsets can be managed and they're useful for us is whenever that stuff is balanced, whenever you can understand the message behind your thoughts and the message behind your emotions, it's no longer problematic. It's useful. It's very useful, because I wouldn't have been able to make those transitions had I not cleared the noise. But if there's so much noise, because reverse that, before my dad died, there was so much noise, I would not have been able to function through any type of transition without the downfall of my life. That forced me to clear the noise. When I cleared the noise, that's when the multiple mindsets and the multiple pieces of the puzzle were able to be balanced and fit properly. Whereas before, I'm putting puzzle pieces upside down and I'm just like, screw this, I'm getting high. I don't want to think about this, right? It's problematic because you're afraid of the noise. You're not sifting through the noise. You're not dissecting the noise. You're not unraveling the rubber bands of the mind. Everything is just jumbled, and you'd rather get drunk or go smoke weed or get laid or watch TV or go shopping or whatever it is that is going to distract you for just a little bit longer from that noise that makes you think all these things you have to think about are problematic.
Yeah, very good. That's a good way of describing it. I like that. When you, actually, I was going to go off on a tangent. Before I go off on that tangent, I'm going to go very, very basic here. I find that anybody who comes onto the show, which is virtually everybody, who's a coach or a mentor or a teacher of some kind, or they're an author, or whatever, they've got something, they have acquired some knowledge and they want to share it with everybody because wow, I've got this really great stuff. Everybody's got to know about this, which is wonderful. That's how people end up becoming givers. But I also find that people who do that tend to have certain types of clientele who come to them. You described very nicely how your crowd, your people just kind of showed up. And all of a sudden you had clients and so forth. I imagine they fit a particular kind of a category or descriptor of some kind. What are your clients like?
My clients are extremely empathetic or empathic. I think I say that wrong every time. They're empaths. And so particularly the struggle with the empath that I attract is they are overly responsible from a very young age. And so they become these perfectionists. They become these overachievers. They become They want to be the best mom. They want to be the best partner. They want to be the best in their career. They want to do a lot, and they thrive when they're serving other people and they're showing up for other people. But because they don't know how to sift through that noise or take care of themselves or, manage their emotions, their mindset, they're always sick or they're always drained or they're easily triggered. Like every time they try to show up or be the bigger person, something goes wrong. And then now they're trying to fight and they're blowing up. They're impulsive. And even though their whole intention was to just show up and make someone's day better. And they ended up doing the opposite. Right. So I hope that's making sense. But for the most part, they know who they want to be and they know what makes them happy, but they've reached a certain point where they're doing all of this from an empty cup. And that empty cup is now affecting their physical health or their mental health or their emotional health. And then that's pouring out into their work life and their love life and their relationships with their children. And again, this comes back to, they're not always exactly like me necessarily. A lot of my clients have big stories, big crazy trauma stories like me too. So that's a similarity that I find is not always, but sometimes they have this repetitive traumatic cycle that they need to unleash and be released from. And I think we all do to a certain level, right? But, and so, but particularly I attract the wearer of many hats, and they want to wear all those hats proudly, and they just, they're having trouble doing it, which is making it hard for them to evolve. And then it becomes Groundhog Day, and they have, not only are they overachievers, they want to show up for so much, but they want to achieve so much, and either it's blocking them from achieving anything that they've got ideas for, or the insecurity or the burnout is telling them that they don't have any ideas, and then they feel unfulfilled as an individual. Right? They feel fulfilled in the way they show up for the world, but they feel lost from their own soul in some sort of capacity. And it's like, so there's a little variation of like, I kind of know what I want. I have this burning desire, but because of my boundaries or because of like how I show up in the world, I'm not making it happen. Or it's this, I show up so much for everybody. I don't even know who I am, Heather. It's like, so it's like these variations, but those are the main people is, they just have so much to give, and they're getting to a point where they're not managing it, or they've not managed it ever, and it's getting to a point where it's starting to manage them. Yeah.
Probably long past that point in many cases too, because, that goes on not long enough and you feel like it's, your life is in control of your circumstances. And
exactly.
That's when everything starts to really unwind. I ask all that because, you mentioned to me before we got started, you have a manifestation mastery guide, and I'm really curious to know how that ties into that particular clientele.
Yeah. So the manifestation mastery guide goes along with helping them create the clarity on 2 levels, right? So level 1 is, do you know what you want? If I'm asking Heather, what does Heather want? What is feeding Heather's soul? Right. So clarity on that, it kind of goes through that and it gives you questions to prompt you on to like reflect on. And then the second clarity is, what are you wanting to create? Think about the big areas of your life. What do you want to create in those areas, and what capabilities, what steps will you need to take to get there? So there's clarity on who you are and what you want, and then clarity on what you're working on and how to make it happen. And then the next step is about aligning to it. So aligning to the desires and to who you want to be essentially goes down to that energetic and mental level. So it goes, the main thing that I think I talk about in the guide is that gratitude we talked about a bit about earlier, is whatever you're not happy with in your life or whatever you think is going wrong, taking a moment to ask yourself, what blessings are behind this? Or how, and then another thing is, how am I already? So, for example, I was actually being interviewed earlier, and they mentioned discipline. They're like, I want to be more disciplined. And I'm like, okay. So, number 1, what do you want to be more disciplined at? And then number 2, how can you look for evidence of how you already are disciplined? And so what I find is when someone is working towards goals, yes, they might not be where they want to be again. Maybe you want to be wealthy, and maybe you're seeing yourself not as well as you're not wealthy because you don't make XYZ amount of money. But in order to become more wealthy, you have to feel wealthy. So what is the evidence that you already are wealthy? And then it comes down to, well, do you have shoes on your feet? Have you eaten today? And then it can go even deeper past the materials. Is your heart beating right now? Are you breathing automatically without thinking? Can you taste? Can you smell? Can you hear, see, speak, whatever, right? And you start to think about these little miracles. You start to elevate this frequency of wealth and abundance. And so you start, law of attraction, like attracts alike. So whenever you are frequencing abundance, you're attracting more of it. So the part 2 in the guide talks about alignment and how to get you emotionally, mentally, and energetically aligned to the life that you want to create. So if you want balance, you know, you've got to create that clarity of like, what do you need? And then how can you become aligned to it, right? And you have to kind of look for the reasons why, what areas are you already balanced that you're not giving yourself credit for? Because here's the case. What I find is, meanwhile, you might not be balanced in some areas, you're balanced in others, but you're not even giving yourself credit for it because you're so attached to this idea that you're not balanced, right? And so the law of attraction is proving to you that you're not balanced because you're so hyper focused on the reasons you're not instead of the reasons that you are. And when you start giving yourself credit for those little things, then you can start to create space for solutions to create more of it. So then the final part is receiving. And I might be saying this backwards, but receiving is just receiving, allowing yourself to relax, rest, and receive. So essentially that's one of the bigger portions that I talk about with this client in particular is they're in a wounded masculine. There's an epidemic of wounded masculinity. And what that means is we are taking too much action. We are taking too much on. We are showing up too much. We are doing too much. And we are not allowing ourselves to receive. And we're allowing ourselves to just give and give and give and give and not receive anything. And that is a key part in, number 1, having enough energy to show up as a giver that you want to be. And then number 2, manifesting anything that you want to manifest. Because if you are in this go, 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 stressed, I'm showing up, I'm overworking, I'm all the things for everybody, the universe and the law of attraction is going to see this as she has no room on her plate. And so then it'll feel like it's paycheck to paycheck, or it'll feel like you're giving so much to your son or your husband or to whoever, and you're not getting anything back in return because you're so drained on how much you've shown up and how much action you've taken. You don't even have space to, even if you are receiving, even if they are giving you something back, you don't have the space to process it. So
it's very similar to when you're in a job and the boss recognizes that you're doing such a good job that they give you more to do, and you do more and they give you more to do, and then it just becomes this never-ending cycle, and you don't understand, why is it that they keep giving me more? Well, it's because you keep doing it. You keep taking it on, so of course they're going to keep giving it to you. Exactly.
So it's this art of balancing that masculine and feminine and allowing yourself to receive. And again, the guide is pretty basic, but it has some really good reflective questions to help you kind of step into those roles and to bring that balance, to bring that alignment so that you can manifest whatever you want to manifest in your health, in your personal life, in your relationships, in your professional life, whatever it is you're wanting to create, whatever it is you want to experience. This is the guide for that. And then there's also a bonus video training. It's about 25 minutes. And I go into great detail on how to align with your desire. So it goes deeper into that portion of alignment. And so you align with the desire so that you can attract it effortlessly. And again, it goes into that gratitude portion. It goes deeper into how to align your thoughts, right? So it's like what you're thinking is what you're creating. And then the emotions. So if we have emotional blockages or emotional buildup, that's that noise. We're not going to be able to get our mindset right or allow ourselves to feel grateful if we've got too much noise of undealt with emotions. So you get the tools for how to deal with those emotions and how to bring everything into alignment so that you can, in fact, be in alignment with how you want your life to look so it can manifest, and just sometimes it just falls into place. You never know, because when you have these ideas of I need this or I have to do this or I have to figure this out, you're in this idea that it's not already figured out. And then you're blocking the manifestation from ever coming. So yes, meanwhile, sometimes there is more to do, right? Sometimes you do need to learn. Sometimes you do need tools to create more wealth or to create whatever. But the first step is to allow yourself to see what tools and what knowledge and what wisdom and what wealth you already have, so that you're not blind to it. Because if you're telling yourself that you don't have it, you'll be blind to all of it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. As usually happens with these shows, we get to an hour, which is our cutoff point, and I say, wow, there's like 10 other paths I want to go down here. Do we have another 10 hours to do here? But unfortunately, we don't. So we'll have to kind of draw a line there. But before we draw the line, there's a couple things I need to get from you. First of all, for somebody who wants to either find the Manifestation Mastery Guide or just learn more about your services, your mentoring services, and so forth, how do they find you?
So the Manifestation Mastery Guide is on my website. So it's Holistic Healer I'm sorry, that's not my website. That's my brand name. HolisticHealingService.com/manifestation guide. And I'll make sure to get you these links just in case I'm telling you them wrong so that you can post them in the description. But if you go to HolisticHealingService.com, it's the first thing. It says click to get my Manifestation Mastery Guide. So you can just go to the basic website and it's the first little thing that you would click on. So HolisticHealingService.com. That's all you have to remember. And then the best way to contact me or be in my space and be connected with me is on Facebook. That's where I mostly am, and I connect more intimately with my followers and friends and people in my group there. So that's Facebook.com/HolisticHealerHeather. Then I also have a Facebook group, Master Manifesting Hub, and then my YouTube channel is Holistic Healer Heather.
Okay, so you got a few things going on. We'll make sure we get the website on there. That sounds like it's like the starting point, and they can probably find their way from there. But
yes.
Yeah, that's really good. Good stuff there. The other thing that I need to tell you before we part company, because we've been talking about you're a giver, you help other people who are givers, people who are over givers who give and don't take enough for themselves and all that kind of stuff. But givers are what really make this world work. They really are. And one of the ways that givers I've found are not really giving themselves enough credit is this is part of the way modern marketing works on the internet. I mean, you're constantly putting out new content. You're doing interviews on podcasts like this one. You're doing all this stuff, putting out all this stuff. And there are people who are consuming it who you've never met. You'll never see. You never will meet them. You don't know who they are, and you're helping them in ways you don't know about. We kind of skim over that part. Yeah. And I don't like that so much. So I like to take a moment to say, on behalf of those people that you've never met and you've never seen, thank you for what you have been putting out. Because in that content alone, in addition to all the work you've been doing, you are making a difference in this world.
Right. And it's so funny that you mentioned that, just because it does. It for anybody who is creating the content and maybe they're not seeing results or maybe they're not getting clients or maybe something like for moments, right? Because we go through those ebbs and flows where we have a bunch of clients come in and then we don't have anybody for like a month or whatever, right? But you're always planting seeds. You're always showing up. You're always doing this work. And every once in a while, it doesn't happen super often, but it particularly happens when maybe I'm in this like, I haven't talked to anybody new in a little while. I wonder what's going on. I'll get a message from somebody who's been in my space for a long time saying, I've used everything that you said over this last year and everything's changed. And I was like, wow. I've never even worked with this person. I didn't even have a clue that they were consuming what I was putting out there. I didn't know that they were applying it. And, then they tell me about all the things they've accomplished just by taking my free content. And it's like, it's worth it. And again, it's all about perspective. It's about what you're telling yourself, right? Like, and then, it goes back to your mission too. Like, why are you showing up? Like, are you just showing up for money? Like, because then it's not going to be fulfilling when the money's not coming in. Are you going to be able to have the confidence, the capabilities to push through when money's not coming in, right? It's got to be a little bit deeper than that. So at least for what I can say as a virtual business owner, or a business owner in general, when it's all about the money doesn't always come in. And so if what you're doing and the purpose you're serving is just about money, it can be quickly resentful and a tiring, effortless chase. And then when it becomes the chase, you're not in alignment with the law of attraction, and you'll quickly run away from it, and it won't turn into a legacy.
Yeah, that's a good reminder to finish us off. Heather Forrester, thank you so much for joining me on the show today and sharing, like this. I didn't even have to do much interview. I just kind of asked a question. I sit back for 10 minutes. I mean, this is pretty cool. I have like a regular co-host he's the same way. I mean, I just give Joel something and I don't have anything to say for 25 minutes. I mean, that's just the way it works.
I have a podcast with my human design guide client, and sometimes I talk way too much. So I have to like stop and be like, Lauren, do you have anything to say?
I understand completely how you feel. I understand how Lauren feels too. I understand both of you. No, it's all good. It's all good. All good. So thank you very much for joining me. Really appreciate you being here for sharing what you've been doing, and wish you all the best going forward, because it sounds like you're on the right road for you. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.